Getting that first offer letter from a global tech giant feels like stepping into a safe, predictable future. The air conditioning is humming, the paychecks are steady, and the HR policies are neatly printed in the employee handbook. But that perception of total security is exactly what makes it so hard to realize when the cubicle becomes a trap. In the middle of 2022, a multinational business process outsourcing unit in Nashik brought in a wave of fresh hires. The facility employed nearly 150 people, mostly young adults between 18 and 25 years old, taking the first steps of their careers. Among them was a 23-year-old woman wrapping up her BCA degree. She crossed paths with an older acquaintance from her college days, Danish Sheikh, who was already working inside the company. He offered to use his internal influence to help her secure a position. This diagram shows why that works. Landing a position at a multinational corporation usually means navigating endless application portals and bruising interviews. Bypassing that friction through an inside connection provides a massive career advantage. She took the help and secured the job. Inside the office, the dynamic was entirely ordinary. She and Danish shared coffee breaks in the bright company pantry. He introduced her to his circle of senior colleagues and team leaders. It looked and felt exactly like standard corporate mentorship. That illusion of professional safety was the group's primary weapon. They used the sanitized, heavily regulated environment of a modern office to lower the defenses of their new recruits. The first fracture in that safety occurred in July 2022. Danish called the young woman out to Kaand Bakery, an isolated rocky hill, under the guise of catching up. Once they were alone, his demeanor flipped, and he attempted to force himself on her. When she fought back and tried to leave, Danish immediately deployed a psychological pivot. He claimed he was only acting aggressively because he was deeply in love with her and wanted to get married. He used the sudden promise of lifelong commitment to confuse her and reframe his physical assault as an act of passion. She asked for time to think and returned to the office, terrified of her senior colleague. But the situation rapidly escalated when another team leader in Danish's circle, TCS Aptar, inserted himself into the dynamic. This graphic illustrates the extortion strategy TCS put into motion. He threatened the victim. Submit to his physical demands, or he would expose her to her family. He weaponized social ruin to lock her into permanent compliance. TCS stalked her through office corridors and the company pantry, maintaining constant pressure while she lived in silent terror of her family discovering the truth. The syndicate deliberately designed this trap. They knew that for a young woman in her first job, the crushing fear of familial shame and public humiliation would entirely override her instinct to ask for help. When victims reached their breaking point, the syndicate deployed their next operative, Nida Kaand. Nida held no formal leadership title, but she possessed immense social power. She approached these distressed young women playing the role of a sympathetic older sister figure, offering a way out of the torment. This animation demonstrates Nida's ideological grooming process. She convinced victims that to find safety, they needed to adopt Islamic practices. The group systematically chipped away at their core identities, using highly offensive language to mock their customs. The harassment often peaked around specific cultural moments. During the festival of Gudi Padwa, one team leader publicly humiliated a 23-year-old Hindu employee by pulling the palu of her sari right on the office floor, while others mocked her religious beliefs in front of her peers. The syndicate also targeted male employees who displayed their faith. One man, who regularly wore a rudraksha, was buried under an impossible workload by Danish and Tausif until he broke mentally. They then forced him to wear a skull cap, pray, and uploaded the photos to the official company WhatsApp group to humiliate him. In a highly regulated multinational corporation, these actions should trigger immediate alarms. The victims did try to speak up. They sent multiple written complaints and emails to the company's Internal Prevention of Sexual Harassment, or POSH, committee. Yet nothing happened. POSH operations manager Ashwin Chinani actively facilitated the syndicate. He intercepted and buried every distress email, ensuring the Mumbai head office remained oblivious to the crisis in Nashik. The victims remained trapped because the syndicate had successfully captured the very compliance mechanisms built to protect them. The protective seal over the Nashik office finally cracked in February 2026. A local political worker caught wind of the systematic brainwashing and forced religious conversions happening inside the BPO and took the information straight to the Nashik City Police. Law enforcement faced an immediate logistical wall. Without physical evidence or a formal victim statement, police cannot simply storm the campus of a prestigious global corporation. They needed undeniable proof of the crimes happening on the production floor. This floor plan illustrates the police department's atypical solution. They selected 6 highly trained female constables, dressed them in plain clothes, and deployed them into the BPO as housekeeping and support staff. For 40 straight days, these undercover officers scrubbed floors and wiped down tables right next to the syndicate. While they cleaned, they listened. The officers observed team leaders cornering young women in the pantries and meeting rooms. They watched the physical harassment happen in real time, mapping the exact routes the group used to isolate their targets, and reporting the intelligence back to their commanders every single evening. Armed with exact knowledge of who was suffering the most, the female officers quietly approached the most terrified victims outside of work hours. In highly secure, private locations, they offered the women counseling and a concrete guarantee of police protection. To bypass the corrupted HR shield, law enforcement had to become just as invisible as the abuse itself. In late March 2026, the silence finally broke. Backed by the police, the original 23-year-old victim walked into the Deolali camp station and filed the first formal FIR. Her bravery triggered an avalanche. Within 9 days, 8 more employees came forward, bringing the total to 9 separate FIRs. The special investigation team moved instantly, arresting 7 men, including the complicit POSH manager, Ashwin Chinani. Nita Kaand abandoned her post and fled the city, and in a final, devastating blow to the first victim, a woman named Maureen contacted her to reveal that Danish Sheikh, the man who claimed he assaulted her out of love, had been married with 2 children the entire time. But as police seized over 40 hard drives and extracted encrypted call records, the scope of the crime exploded. Informants revealed the group was receiving heavy external funding to facilitate these conversions, with digital instructions traced back to a radical handler operating out of Malaysia. The investigation became a matter of national security. The Anti-Terrorism Squad and the National Investigation Agency took over digital forensics to probe the foreign funding behind this organized operation. The political fallout was immediate. Maharashtra's chief minister ordered a deep, systemic review of the case, openly questioning if this incident represented a larger, imported model of organized corporate manipulation taking root in the state. From 2022 to 2026, a criminal syndicate operated entirely in the open. They required no weapons and no dark alleyways. They simply used the rigid structure of a modern corporate hierarchy to locate vulnerable young professionals, sever them from their families, and trap them in the air-conditioned silence of the daily grind.